Alien is one of the best sci-fi franchises ever conceived. The first two movies especially are absolute works of art in my opinion, and they have so much to say about how far humans will go for the sake of their survival, and in other cases, how far they'll go for the sake of greed. And similarly, Spider-Man is also an absolute work of art, showing how far one person will go to protect people, even if it means ruining his entire life. Both series tell stories of survival and sacrifice, so what if they crossed over? So now we begin our story in Spider-Man 3. The movie starts the same at first, with Peter helping us to catch up on what's been going on. We then see Mary Jane's play, Harry Osborn becoming the new Goblin, and finally, Peter and MJ's date in Central Park. Now as the pair look up together into the night sky, we cut to a spacecraft, one with an Oscorp Industries logo on it called the Nostromo, being piloted by one John Jameson. And we see that Harry Osborn, vengeful for him trying to marry MJ in the last movie, has sent Jameson on this mission on purpose, knowing that it might be really dangerous. This mission is to travel to a planetoid with potential for hosting alien life. They get to the moon, codenamed LV-426, and discover a derelict spacecraft filled with eggs. Now the team decide to collect all the eggs which don't hatch yet, and bring them back to Earth with them. Now John is heavily against this, and advises that they use their quarantine protocols, but Harry overrules that decision, wanting to study the creatures. He calls it Nobel Prize worthy. Now as we cut back to Peter and MJ's date, we see an asteroid land quietly in Central Park, and of course, out comes the Venom symbiote. Now the movie then goes the same for a while, with Peter receiving Aunt May's ring, being attacked by Harry Osborn, and MJ getting fired from her play. However, in between all of that, we see Oscorp scientists are trying to work on the eggs. Now while one of them has their back turned, the egg actually hatches, and when they turn around, a facehugger latches tightly onto their head, cutting right through their hazmat suit. So now later on, we see Peter hearing about what Flint Marko did to Uncle Ben, and we see him vengefully listening to his police scanner, just waiting for the Sandman to make a move. He then becomes exhausted, and that's when the Venom symbiote bonds with him. Now Peter and Harry then have their house fight earlier than they did, and we see that during the fight, when Harry stabs Peter, a piece of the symbiote actually attaches itself to Harry. Now when Peter throws a pumpkin bomb at Harry's face, the symbiote climbs inside of his body through the wound and turns red. However, we also see that at Oscorp, the eggs have all hatched, and every single employee is now comatose on the floor, each with an alien facehugger attached to them. We then see Peter having his fight with the Sandman in the sewers. However, after seemingly killing him, his spider sense starts going crazy, and he starts hearing the faintest sounds of movement. Peter stealthily hops up onto the ceiling, and he starts slowly crawling, using his new black suit to conceal himself in the shadows. He's looking for whatever could possibly be making those sounds. However, as he gets closer to the sounds, he nearly gets his face bitten off by a fully grown xenomorph. Now, Peter tries fighting it, and he manages to avoid being burned with acid or impaled by its tail. But then there's more of them coming, and coming, and coming, more and more and more. And all of a sudden, even the black suit can't contain Peter's growing anxiety. And he realizes that he's at a disadvantage. So Peter goes up to the surface, where he finds chaos waiting for him on the streets. People are running around screaming, and police are trying to contain these creatures. We see Captain Stacy is trying to shoot one of them, but the acid blood is nearly killing him. But luckily, Spider-Man is able to swoop in and save him just in time. Peter then hurriedly swings off to Mary Jane and Aunt May, and we get an epic swinging sequence as aliens are climbing across the buildings around them. Now, after saving them and telling them to get as far away from the city as possible, he returns to the main city and goes to visit Harry at Osborn Manor. But Harry isn't the least bit concerned. He's just standing there drinking some wine, and then Peter swings in and asks them to put their differences aside for the good of the city. But Harry just says no. Harry says he's never going to help the man that killed his father. He doesn't deserve his help, and that as far as he's concerned, the aliens will do for him what he already wanted. Will take away the precious city that Peter cares about so much. Now, this is very extreme even for Harry, but that's when we see the Carnage symbiote has taken him over and made him even more evil. Harry then punches Peter in the face. We get a symbiote versus symbiote fight that spills out onto the streets of the city. They occasionally have to take breaks to defend themselves from xenomorphs, but their personal fight continues amidst the chaos. However, in the end, Peter loses the black suit when some of the aliens' acid blood causes the symbiote to become weakened and leave his body. Now, this gives Peter the idea of doing the same thing to Harry, but Harry is able to outmaneuver Peter since Peter now doesn't have his symbiote, so he leaves Peter to die at the hands of a swarm of aliens before swinging off to try and find Mary Jane. We then see that Peter is luckily able to escape, but he's pretty badly injured. He uses what little energy he has left to try and escort all the civilians to safety, including Ursula and her father, as well as J. Jonah Jameson, and we're able to get some funny banter between them, but as Spider-Man swings away, we see a smile creeping onto JJ's face because he always secretly kinda likes Spider-Man. Now, Flint Marko then returns from his watery grave, hell-bent on getting revenge on Spider-Man, only to find an alien-ridden hellscape that used to be New York. We then see that several iconic monuments have been destroyed, and unlucky citizens are on the streets with facehuggers on them. Flint's instinctual reaction is to find his ex-wife and his daughter. He then uses his sand powers in order to protect them, but the aliens start to overwhelm them, until Spider-Man comes to help them out. Now, at the edge of the city, Flint kneels down, and he decides to return the locket to Penny. He tells her that he does want her to have it. He's just not sure if he's coming back from this one, but she refuses to believe that. She says that he and Spider-Man will protect the city no matter what. Flint then looks up at Spider-Man, whose expressions are impossible to pinpoint. Now, as Penny and her mother leave, Flint decides to turn himself in. He's moved to tears by his daughter's unending faith in him as a good man. However, after a long while, Spider-Man tells him that he needs his help, and the pair return to the city together. Now, it should be noted that Spider-Man doesn't necessarily want to work with him, but he does need a partner, and he realizes that. We then see that Harry's having an inner argument with Carnage. He doesn't want to hurt Mary Jane, but he's not in control of himself anymore. However, after seeing Mary Jane from a distance, the real Harry finds the strength to regain control, and he realizes that he can't hurt Mary Jane. He won't hurt her. He then turns around, and he decides to use Carnage to help Peter. So we get Peter, Carnage, and Sandman all working together to defeat the last of the Xenomorphs. However, Harry sacrifices himself to save Peter's life. Flint then explains what happened that night with Uncle Ben, and Peter forgives him. We then cut to Peter and MJ reuniting at a mass funeral that's being held for the many fallen victims. Peter then visits both Uncle Ben and Harry's graves. We then see Spider-Man is aiding in the reconstruction of the city, and we see MJ and Peter moving into a new apartment together. Peter then brings in the motherload of pictures for JJ, who calls them crap as usual. We then see MJ landing a gig as a waitress/singer at a jazz club, determined to work her way back up, and we hear Peter giving an inspirational final monologue about how we're getting ready to see a new Spider-Man, and the last shot shows Spider-Man swinging to he and MJ's new apartment with a wedding ring in his hand. So this was a fun video to do, I'm not gonna lie, because honestly I've wanted to talk about aliens for a while on this channel, because man, the first two Alien movies are masterpieces. I used to watch the second one in particular all the time when I was a kid. I know, it's a weird movie for kids to watch, but you know, I watched my first R-rated movie when I was 4, so you know. But anyway, I loved Aliens when I was a kid, and now I love Alien as an adult. And I love that franchise so much, and I really wanted to eventually make a video on it. And then I started doing these crossovers, you know, with Terminator and Iron Man, and before that, you know, Spider-Man and American Psycho. And I thought about doing this one because, you know, Spider-Man 3 has Venom in it, you know, an alien. And I just couldn't help but think that, you know, Venom versus the aliens would be really fucking awesome. And I didn't really do that. I decided to use Carnage instead because I don't know if you noticed, I kind of wanted to cut out Eddie Brock. I didn't really want to do Eddie Brock in this version. I was gonna, you know, have him just be a character in the movie, but then not actually have him be Venom until Spider-Man 4. Like, we could say some of the symbiote survives the acid blood, and then it attaches to Eddie Brock when he's trying to flee from the city, and then that could set up a, you know, a Venom spin-off, or it could lead to him being the villain in Spider-Man 4, you know, whatever they want to do. And the same could go for Carnage. You could say a little bit Carnage survives after Harry's death, or something like that. And I know that Harry wouldn't have died if he was Carnage, I know, but honestly, I do think that Harry dying dying makes sense, and I wouldn't want Harry to be a recurring villain, but I also think that there was so much going on in this movie already, it wouldn't make sense to introduce Cletus Cassidy now. So I hope you can forgive me for that retcon. I know that, I have fans that hate the fact that I keep having Harry Osborn get symbiotes, but it's just because it makes sense, because Harry Osborn was built up, for the first two movies. So it just would make sense to me for him to get a symbiote of some sort in the third, at least in my opinion. And yeah, I know that this might not have been my best crossover. I'm aware of that. And I'm sorry if the video itself wasn't that great. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of feeling that well today. I'm sorry. I'm slurring my words. I'm not really feeling that well today. My throat's been really sore, and I haven't been re-recording this video because normally I re-record slides if I don't like the sound of them. But today I've been trying not to because my voice is kind of hoarse. So if this video is like not as good as my usual output, I'm sorry about that. I really tried to make this one as good as possible because, as I said, I really wanted to do this. I really was looking forward to doing Spider-Man and Alien, and I hope that I was able to live up to people's expectations and didn't let anybody down. Now, what is my opinion on this crossover? Do I think it would have been cool? Yeah, honestly. I mean, I've said in the past, like I said in the American Psycho video, I don't think Spider-Man needs to have, like, R-rated stuff. I think it kind of works better without that, actually. But this was tempting. This was too tempting not to do, because it's so cool. The aliens are so cool, and it's just so awesome to put them in, a Marvel movie, in my opinion. I just think that would be so, so cool. I think that the aliens can make anything immediately cooler, honestly. But let me know your opinion on this scenario in the comments down below. Do you like it or do you think it's crap? I want to hear all about it in the comments down below. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all of your friends on all your various social media platforms. And speaking of social media, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Rinzler_Productions, and I'll see all of you in the next video.